Welcome to today's webinar by Forbes in partnership with Ericsson. The topic of the webinar is Future of Mobility, Opening New Possibilities Through Autonomous Driving. Welcome everybody to today's special discussion where we will discuss the innovative steps being taken to achieve autonomous driving and how the infrastructure plays a key part in supporting this endeavour. The Dubai government aims for a quarter of transportation to be autonomous in the Emirates by 2030, which is why the new initiatives to accelerate the adoption of autonomous driving are taking place. There are numerous requirements and collaborations required across all organizations, including academia, private sector, and the government and the regulatory space. Today, we have an amazing panel of speakers, industry experts who will talk about the digital transformation in that space and what is required to create an ecosystem to develop the concept of autonomous driving and achieve the leadership's vision of autonomous driving in 2030. Without further ado, we will hear from our panelists today. And I will go through those 10, just do a quick introduction before we delve into the questions. So today we have with us Professor Ghaleb Ali Alhadrami, Vice Chancellor of the UAE University. We have Mr. Tariq Awadi, Executive Director of Spectrum Affairs from the TDRA. We have Mr. Zakaria Al-Ashek from the Director Solution Marketing, IoT, Connectivity and Mobility from Etisalat. We have Mr. Wojciech Bajda, the Vice President in Ericsson. And lastly, we have Mr. Engineer Ali Al-Awadi, Head of Technology Services for DO. So welcome today to our Forbes webinar, and I look forward to moderating the discussion. I'd like to start the conversation today with Tariq Al-Awadi from TDRA. So Mr. Tariq, TDRA is responsible for regulating the telecom sector, and through its proactive and forward-looking initiatives, it is really fast-tracked 5G in the UAE. How do you intend to build on this collaborative model, the telecom sector, to develop the services that will help the region to attain the autonomous driving?
Well, thank you very much, Tariq, for this question. It is, first of all, it's my pleasure to be here with you all in this session.
You're very welcome.
As you mentioned earlier, that in 2016, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed already announced that the launch Dubai Autonomous Transportation Strategy, which aims to transform 25% of total transportation in Dubai to autonomous mode by 2030. And this is will yielding around figures 22 billion dirhams in annual economic saving. So ever that time also TDRA as the regulator for telecom sector and ICT sector in the UAE, we started with the 5G project in 2015. And the automobile industry were the most participative member in the 5G vertical committee. TDRA has reformed the UAE 5G initiative team in 2021 with two aim committees or teams were established. The first is the steering committee to set the course of actives works according to the UAE 5G strategy, which was approved by the end of 2019. This strategy is very important strategy for us at the TDRA in the UAE, which streamline how to move forward with providing the 5G technology all over UAE. Of course, 5G development team is responsible to handle all required action for each of the identified cluster. And one of them, Intelligent Transportation System, ITS, is one of the main cluster identified for 5G use cases in the UAE, with focus on how to benefit from the capabilities of current networks, as well as the future requirement to maximize the advantages of 5G to ITS effectively and efficiently. The UAE self-driving strategy further supported by the TDRA and engaging with all strategic partners on this collaborative models to test and deploy the autonomous driving. So summary, we can say that we have a committees, we have cluster, Similar right now, we have it in this meeting. We have a regulator, TDRA, we have operator, Dual Etisalat, we have mobile industry, Ericsson, and we have from education, UAE University. And we are calling them, all of them in one working group, different working group. It depends on the cluster, and working with them in order to see their requirement, how the operator can provide them, what the industry mobile can invent for them, research also by the education industry. That is what we are doing, and how TDRA is helping for driving, for example, driving autonomous for autonomous driving and for other cluster within the 5G.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I want to take the conversation over to Professor Ghaleb Ali Alhadrami from the UAE University. My first question to you, Professor Ghaleb, is intelligent transportation systems obviously are a vision of the future, as we can already see, and it integrates not only the existing transportation infrastructure with the communication networks, as we've already heard from Etisalat, but it also, as a university of the future, what role does the UAE play in making this vision that we've just talked about a reality?
Thank you. Thank you for having me with you guys. But let me first, I take 1 minute just to give an idea about United Arab Emirates University. United Arab Emirates University.
Sure, go ahead.
United Arab Emirates University is a comprehensive university. That means it has many disciplines. We offer like 50 program for undergraduate and 50 for graduate program. So that's why what get us excited is a complete package here in the university. And we are located in Al-Ain city, is the beautiful, the oasis Al-Ain city. So why we call it the University of the Future? I think this idea came like 5 years back. We realized that the whole higher education changing. If I'm not mistaken, I think McKinsey, they published a report saying that what happened in the last 800 years in higher education is going to be peanuts to what's going to happen in the next 8 years. And I don't think at that time they know about COVID. So COVID has speed up the changes. And I think you guys know that higher education is the most conservative and most slow in terms of adopting things and changes. But at our university, we were very excited at that time. And that's what the name is, University of the Future. And I hope we can stand up to that name. And I'm sure we will. So this vision, how can we work this one? We recognize actually the importance of potential and what do you call it, of intelligence transportation system. And we acknowledge the need for the collective effort. That's why we are working with Ericsson, why we're working with Do, we are working with Etisalat. And so what we are trying to create, that ecosystem, that they help the university and to help the science community, that we can create a new knowledge in that one. So UAE University probably has the most advanced research infrastructure, and they have a very well designed campus that is suit and fit autonomous vehicle. That's what we hope that we can be on the forefront, leading the research in this area. Of course, that cannot be done at a single player. It has to be collaborative. We have to bring. I always still tell my colleagues here, I said, look, we are living in a new era. We have to bring, it is no longer is about collaboration. I think we have to do alliance with industry. We have to bring the industry into campus, and we have to take campus into the industry. So we benefit the research, we benefit the world, we benefit the committee, and we benefit our students.
And I love how you put that very creative way, but I think it's absolutely true, bringing academia to organizations and organizations into academia. So they really have an understanding. And I think you've said the right term. It's not only about collaboration, but I think it's about an alliance and aligning. So thank you very much for those points, Mr. Ghaleb. Mr. Wojciech, Bajda, the Vice President of Ericsson. So welcome, Mr. Wojciech.
Thank you. Thank you, Soraya. Great to be here.
So, thank you. Thank you for joining. So the first question today is that autonomous driving is the start of really a paradigm shift for transport industry. And how are organizations leveraging the solutions 5G technology to achieve autonomous driving in the region?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think we all agree that currently we are living in amazing times, and with the evolution of 5G and beyond, we are moving technological boundaries forward to create the biggest innovation platform ever. A major enabler of auto industry transformation will be 5G, definitely. And 5G will be the key to provide connectivity services for both vehicle to vehicle, but also vehicle to infrastructure communication. However, to make this a reality, we need a cross-sector collaboration between different ecosystem participants. Ericsson has a long history of harnessing technology and developing innovative new solutions that benefit our society. We are a member of 5G Automotive Association, and we have been working with partners across the globe, including Scania, Volvo, Microsoft, Einride, or DB Schenker, many others, to leverage ICT-driven innovation and drive smart transport solutions. We are also actively working with our regional partners. For example, we have been working with Road Transport Authority in Dubai to deliver a smart fleet management solution. And recently we signed MOU with the UAE University to be part of a smart communication and autonomous driving consortium to help making autonomous driving a reality in the UAE. By the way, I want to thank Professor Ghaleb for letting us join this consortium. Really appreciate, and we will definitely do our best to contribute to this great initiative.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So what I'd like to do is take the conversation over to Dr. Zakaria from the Director in Solution Marketing at IoT Mobility Etisalat. So Zakaria, the government strategy is to raise the share of autonomous transport to as much as 25% of the total transportation in the Emirates by 2030. How are you supporting the nation's long-term vision in promoting the digitization initiatives?
So what we do is actually goes in many folds. We first work also with the regulators, the transportation regulator near the RTA and the other RTA within other Emirates, to put basically the law, how basically the new law for autonomous driving is working, and how the new regulation for people who will be actually using those vehicles. So we work with them specifically on making sure that it's safe. Second, we work with many of the government organizations as well, and the government within the other, few Emirates, to launch basically such kind of solutions, and which will be the first in the region. So hopefully within 2 days, we are a few days away from JATEX, we're going to announce one of these first autonomous project going to be driven hopefully within one of the Emirates. And this is basic, as just been said, that it's a collaboration between many companies. So we work with the car OEMs, we work with the cellular V2X, which is vehicle to everything, a kind of technology which is enabled by 5G, and also we work with the local authorities, because such kind of a project would not be able to be done without the support of the local authorities from the municipalities and traffic regulator, etc. So what we hope that this will be done very soon, and actually will help the market within the UAE to take the first steps into autonomous transport. So when people actually start to get used to that, there's actually something called autonomous vehicles actually running between us, and they start to use them, and then we can go to next other steps. So the third is basically, which is the standard by of course enabling the network which supports autonomous transport. It starts of course by connecting all the vehicles within the existing market right now. So if you out of maybe around 2 million connected devices in the UAE right now, there's around 650,000 connected cars as we speak. And that's expected to actually grow to around 1.6 within 5 years million. So what we do is, from a network perspective, is that we actually enable the connectivity for those vehicles from a, let's say, a low bandwidth. We recently have launched a new network, which is called LTE-M, which is specifically for vehicles. Also, of course, the launch of 5G and the successful, use cases about 5G as well.
Brilliant. That's very good to hear. I mean, so a lot of work has been done in that space, and it's very impressive that they have so many vehicles already that's been developed. I want to take the conversation over to now Head of Technology, Mr. Engineer Ali Al-Awadi from DO. So you've just had the benefit of hearing all the other speakers, answering some of the questions. The first question to you is, why do you think the development of an agile and smart connectivity technology is the first step towards automated mobility?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting me in this event. It's truly an amazing experience to share the thoughts together and to bridge that kind of, let's say, knowledge between the industry, as rightly mentioned by Professor Ghaleb, and the academy. I think this is going to be a wonderful opportunity. Now, coming to your question, I mean, that's a very important question, because there is that perception that autonomous driving is about independent cars just driving on the road, which is the wrong perception. Autonomous driving is so much more complex than that. It's about having the ability to give the cars complete awareness about their surrounding. They should be able to communicate with the other cars. They should be able to communicate with surrounding devices on the roadside. For example, communicating even with the traffic signal lights. So that makes it a complete ecosystem, as also rightly mentioned by Professor Ghaleb. It's the complete ecosystem, different elements within that ecosystem working in harmony together. Now, what can bridge all those elements together, of course, is connectivity, and not any form of connectivity. We're talking about certain specific, let's say, characteristics of that technology that's needed, much needed for autonomous driving. It has to be ultra low latency. It has to be very high bandwidth, because there are so many criteria around autonomous driving that needs to be highly responsive. We're talking about road safety, human lives are at stake. So that kind of characteristic of connectivity is crucial. And 5G definitely is one of the, of course, the latest technology when it comes to mobile connectivity that can fulfill that requirement for autonomous driving.
Very well put. And I think it's one of the things that you highlighted, which is very important, is, I think people do underestimate what autonomous driving is about. And I think you've said it very well, when it's absolutely all about connectivity, and it's about an ecosystem, as you and Mr. Ghaleb has put it, in order to make this happen, because we're talking even about lives, that could potentially be at risk if something does not go according to plan. So thank you so much for that. I might come back to Mr. Wojciech Bajda. So Mr. Wojciech, you've heard now from all the speakers. What we'd like to hear from you is more about what practical steps can be taken in terms of enabling an efficient, reliable, flexible communication platform that will benefit autonomous transportation. So you've just heard from Mr. Ali from DO speaking a little bit on that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your views in terms of autonomous transportation and really practical steps that can be taken?
Absolutely. As an Ericsson, we have been helping building UAE communication infrastructure systems since early 80s. And we know that innovation is at the heart of leaders of this beautiful country, and innovation is part of Ericsson DNA. So we want to bring our best knowledge, competence, and global experience here to contribute to development of this autonomous driving. And we have been having a long-standing collaborative relationship with TDRA. We have been part of TDRA 5G committee for speedy deployment of 5G in the country. We want to share our experience from other markets when it comes to policies and regulations, because as it was said before, it's not only about connecting vehicles so the vehicle can move around. There are so many other changes that have to happen, including regulatory side. And this is something where we may bring some global experience, best practices, and share with TDRA and the whole consortium that is driven by UAE University. In addition, I want to say that yesterday we have signed the MOU with the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology to support innovation in the country and enable all the technologies that are behind the fourth industrial revolution. 5G is one of them. 5G is the platform. 5G is required to enable this autonomous driving. We are talking about super fast network with super low latency and super reliable. This is what you need for autonomous driving. And we strongly believe that this collaborative way of the government, industry, and academia is super, super key. This is the pathway to achieving the necessary momentum for enabling complex use cases like autonomous driving. And I'm so glad to see all of us here. I'm so happy we are part of this consortium driven by Professor Ghaleb and his team. And I'm pretty sure we will deliver soon very, very tangible results to make UAE in the forefront of autonomous driving concept.
I think that's definitely possible. Mr. Zakaria from Etisalat, I have a question for you. So Mr. Wojciech just spoke about 5G. He just spoke about connectivity being key in this autonomous driving. So 5G is definitely a game changer. It's definitely a platform towards autonomous transportation. But can you tell us a little bit about how you are expanding the 5G network technology to encourage the self-driving vehicles?
Sure, Thoraya. So what we're doing that as well is also in different directions. Of course, we have covered the country with full 5G coverage, and that will be also used partially for autonomous driving. Definitely the features and specification of the network will now with the low latency and high bandwidth will help us definitely to help the car OEMs to run their cars within the country. At the same time, also we're working on with smart cities within the UAE. We're working with campuses as well to make sure that some of the cases that will require even a dedicated private 5G network would actually sort it out. Because autonomous, we should not also understand that autonomous vehicle is only about a shuttle bus, for example, or a car which actually take passenger. There's many other use cases which are working on, including delivery, including even healthcare and many other. So you can imagine, for example, a smart city which actually would have a lot of different autonomous vehicles for either delivering goods or helping people and so forth. So we have that also ongoing. We had a very good work with UAE University as well on that, and we are working very closely with them to also enable this kind of use cases within the campuses, while we are also covering the bigger market with the collaboration, as we have mentioned. I think it's about time that maybe some of the real steps to be taken to start these kind of use cases and these kind of behavior, changing the market basically to this kind of understanding and this kind of use of new use of transportation. And so we're trying to take few steps with some of the governments also within the UAE, which hopefully it's something will be beneficial. So to create this also ecosystem and welcome other also technology providers within the country to be able to be part of that ecosystem. Of course, we're working with Ericsson and the other technology provider with that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those comments. And I think I think in the very near future, we'll, as you said, see some of those really real steps taking place to develop the ecosystem further. I wanted to hear a little bit more from TDRA, Mr. Tariq Al-Awadi. So what policies, Mr. Tariq, are being implemented and what initiatives are being taken to promote the implementation of efficient 5G technology by the TDRA? So we've heard from Etisalat, we heard from Ericsson. If we can hear a little bit more about what the TDRA is doing to take those real steps towards developing efficient and using the 5G technology.
Well, 5G, one of the main things that they required in order to be success and to start with it, they required frequencies, spectrum, radio frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So the TDRA from the beginning, when we started with the 5G, one of the main things that we work on it to provide sufficient and enough frequencies for the operator, telecom operator, to start with it. And that is required a lot of things. It's not something easy because the spectrum, it is one of the scarce resources in all over the world.
Absolutely.
And we have to work with the neighboring countries, and we have to work with the international level at ITU to define frequency. So what we did that in 2017, we have a group, we call it Arab Spectrum Management Group under Arab League, Jamia Al Arabiya. And this group, it is chaired by myself also, and I'm chairing that one. We are working towards about the regulation for spectrum and worldwide with ITU, WRCs. And in 2017, we said that we need to start with the 5G. So we developed and asked to have frequencies, which is mainly that frequency, it is not assigned as a primary for mobile or in our region. So we agreed among our 22 countries, Arab countries, that this frequency band has to be assigned as a mobile, as a primary services within our group, within our Arab group, and we manage and we succeed on that one, which is the band, we call it from 3.3 up to 3.8 gigahertz. So once we work on that one, and what we in UAE, we started immediately, and we started with, of course, trials, and we always supporting our operators, telecom operators, Salat and Do, assigning frequencies for trial testing. And in 2018, UAE one of the first country in the region who started with the 5G commercial, and ranked 4th worldwide for the 5G commercial. So that this is what we are working towards, that to fulfill the leadership vision 2021 and to make UAE among the best countries in the world. Right now, UAE ranked #1 in mobile penetration for the last 3 or 4 years. We are also #1 in online service index. So UAE strategy for 5G and beyond focus on a collaborative model with all cases, deployment through initiatives. And we also working with the operators and also with the transportation authorities like RTA or Abu Dhabi Transportation and others. And if we can take an example, Dubai Metro is one of the largest self-driving public transportation system in the world. In Abu Dhabi, Masdar has been the pioneer in autonomous transport. There are a number of UAE universities that have active autonomous driving trials and research. We saw it also a number of times, the driverless taxi initiative. I believe you have seen it, that video also done between General Motors and RTA. All those require to have frequencies, and our role as a TDRA, as all telecom regulator, by the way, in the worldwide, we have to make sure to find suitable frequencies enough. Right now, you can see it in our expo. Alhamdulillah, we have assigned very good frequencies for the 5G with zero interference. And I believe you can see there the state-of-art technologies and 5G also. And next week, JITEX, I hear from our colleagues, and we will see new things. And hopefully that will be one of them, of course. And we are focusing a lot right now on autonomous driving. And inshallah, we will do our best. And this is one of the things that the TDRA supporting the telecom operator industry with the policies.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. And I really do think that there's going to be a lot that the UAE has still yet to see, even though they've come such a long way, but there's so much more in store. I want to take the conversation over to Professor Ghaleb from the UAE University. So, you know, proof of concept and use cases are extremely important in advancing technology. They really serve as a precursor for the realization of the idea to come to life and to test the feasibility. How can the UAE University harness the modern campus that it has and the resources and the infrastructure to enable the creation, but also the evaluation of the proof of concepts, which are critical to understanding the innovation and emerging technology?
Thank you. Look, we're trying. First, let me tell you, always I have to start with something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tell us.
I'm not an
this is really about
person,
hearing from you. Yes.
So this is my weakest point, probably, but it's very fascinating because I'll tell you why UAEU is very exciting about going into this area. UAEU is the flagship of the country, so we have to be, you know, really leading any development, creating the know-how, and
absolutely.
And that's why I believe, to be honest with you, when Mr. Tariq said we have, I think we need not to only to have, but also to create that knowledge here, if we want to become advanced country, and you know, in this coming next 50 years is high pressure on especially on higher education. The expectation is really high, the bar is really high. And we realized that years back, and that's why we transformed the UAE University from a teaching institution is to a research intensive research university. And that's why we are opening around 50 graduate program, because PhD student, master student are the one that creating with their professor the know-how. And actually now we believe that we're working with Ericsson again. We're trying to make the UAEU campus as a living campus. We're transforming the campus into an intelligent campus. So we are, our road is, we have a very good road, I mean, very perfect for trying autonomous car. We are trying to make it a smart road. Our building, we're trying to make it a smart building. So regarding the proof of concept, we do have the infrastructure here is well suited, to be honest with you, to explore all these challenges that they're facing, what we call it intelligent transportation system. So we will, I think, position ourselves to become the place in the Middle East for the proof of concept of this autonomous, you know, vehicle or intelligent transportation system.
Thank you very much for that. It does sound like the UAE University is really raising the bar, and I think though it's up to the challenge from everything we've heard today from you. So thank you for that. Mr. Engineer Ali Al-Awadi from DO, the question to you is how telecoms are the backbone of autonomous driving, as we've already heard. How is DO enhancing the communication capabilities, which will be focused on providing the mobility experience?
Well, I mean, the evolution of connectivity, excuse me, has rapidly, of course, accelerated over the past decade, and it's a never-ending area of development, especially when it comes to mobile connectivity. And today, compared to only a few years ago, 5G is offering speeds that's beyond even 10 times faster than the 4G technology, and not to mention, of course, the latency kind of latency that it provides is in 1 to 2 milliseconds at the most, compared with 4G having latencies of 15 milliseconds all the way to 30 milliseconds. So that growth, that evolution, that development in the industry is something crucial to fulfill the needs of the different use cases, not just autonomous driving. Of course, autonomous driving is very demanding when it comes to such characteristics, but in general for all use cases. Now, in we've got huge investments allocated to even further develop the 5G network. We're continuously evolving and improving our infrastructure to offer best-in-class connectivity to accommodate different sets of use cases, as I mentioned, not just the autonomous driving. And we're also conducting massive rollouts of 5G. Our target by the end of 2021 is to have 90% nationwide population coverage of 5G, which is a fundamental step towards all the ambitions outlined by, and as also highlighted by Mr. Tariq, to fulfill the vision of the leadership when it comes to this domain.
Very impressive. 90% coverage across nationwide with 5G is very, very impressive. So looking forward to seeing that. I'm going to take the conversation back to Mr. Wojciech Bajda. So the final question for you, Mr. Wojciech, is how are you making it possible for both the government and telecoms to achieve a digitalized ecosystem that will accelerate autonomous driving? So we've already heard from you and the collaborations that you have with various organizations and academia. So if you can just summarize finally, really the development and I guess the relationship that has been cemented between government and telecom.
Sure. You know, our intention is to bring the best what we have as Ericsson, to bring all our R&D knowledge or our expertise. I mean, in Ericsson, our purpose and vision has been, you know, empowering intelligent, sustainable, and connected world. And obviously, technology is in the heart of our business. With our technologies and services, we are pioneering new ways to connect systems, cities, and societies in ways that never thought was possible. And autonomous driving is one of the key use cases here. I mean, our role is to act as an advisor, as a technology provider, enabling this specific use case to work. We are committed to work with our customer service providers in UAE, DU and Etisalat. We are committed to share our know-how with UAE University. As Professor Ghaleb said, it's about sharing what we know, but also for the university to innovate themselves and try to create this knowledge from their side. And we hope to be part of this journey. And as I said before, regulatory is extremely important. And here we all need to support TDRA in coming up with the right policies and regulations that will make autonomous driving working and possible in UAE. So each of us has a role to play in this whole ecosystem. And it's not possible that one entity, one party can make it happen. The most important is collaboration, commitment, and hard work from all of us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zakaria, you've heard now from Mr. Wojciech, and we've heard that collaboration is key, that constant improvement, working together with organization, getting their feedback and really to support this use case and move us towards this achieving the vision of the autonomous transportation. Can you tell us your last words on how you see this moving forward and what steps, practical steps after this webinar today will happen to continue to achieve the vision of the ruler?
Sure, Tariq. First of all, I can say that we're living in a country where it have all the factors to be number one, right? So you can take it in a very simple kind of areas of infrastructure. So the road infrastructure is one of the best in the world. The government initiative and the government support, it's always very competitive. We always are number one in everything we do. there's a major, leadership within UAE, which actually helps to create this kind of ecosystem, and we totally respect that. And there are sort of a race within, the different governments to make sure that they are launching the latest technologies, and this creates this kind of a very healthy competition to enhance those initiatives and how the actually final results will be. So, so this is basically number one. So when we have the right networks, so we have the 5G, we'll have the right technology required, and then when we have the right collaboration between different technology providers, like for example, we're using our expertise in IoT within artificial intelligence and of course cellular V2X, to make sure that this has happened. I mean that we have to work with all these companies, and all these companies have to work together. It's not like centralized kind of a approach. At the same time, on a bigger scale, municipalities, transport authorities also have to support that, and that's actually what will help to make the best out of it in a best result. So I think we're quite close. It's we've done very good work from regulatory, from academia, from technology providers, and I think it's about time that we can see this happening, and of course to make sure that the UAE is still and will stay always number one within these new technologies and new initiatives as well, for sure.
Thank you very much. And again, some very key points there, and you're really reflecting, I guess, what the other speakers have said on this topic about collaboration, about commitment, about fantastic leadership and excellent vision, and then most importantly, the collaboration between all parties involved to make this truly happen. So thank you so much for that. So next question is, and last comments from Mr. Tariq from the TDRA. So, we can see very clearly that everybody does have a role to play, but regulation and policies at the end of the day really need to support the work of all of the organizations in the academia and which come together. So what are your last comments? And I guess what would you say on behalf of the TDRA to all of the panelists today about taking this discussion and this initiative forward?
Very good question. And as I mentioned earlier also, that since the TDRA been established 2004 until now, and in 2016 when we established these committees for 5G and others, we always trying to have the latest technology in the country. And in order to have this latest technology in the country, we should have a very advanced infrastructure. I would like to thank our both telecom operators, of course, with the mobile industry whole, like Ericsson and others, for their really hard work to enhance our infrastructure. I mean, telecom infrastructure. Telecom infrastructure, there is an index also with the United Nations, TII, call it TII, under e-development index. And UAE ranked one of the top 10 in the world for us in the TIA. And that is because our telecom infrastructure is very advanced, and they are really working very hard to bring these things and these for new technologies. Coming back for other regulation and policies, and autonomous driving, for example, requires ubiquitous coverage on all roads for connectivity. And we can see that one from telecom operator. And the 5G network can play a significant role for vehicle to everything. However, for also traffic updates, digital mapping, weather and hazard warning, road closure information require connectivity. Therefore, infrastructure is an important pillar. Infrastructure has two components. Road infrastructure, which is not under the TRA. And that is, road infrastructure has to be done with the transportation authorities or municipalities, whatever, the government, other government entities. For ICT infrastructure, it is under the TRA with the telecom operator and mobile industry. The UAE road infrastructure is already smart and is under further enhancement in accordance with the UAE self-driving strategy. And if we come to the UAE telecom licensees, they are aggressively rolling out the 5G across all UAE, especially outdoors coverage and all major roads. The licensees also are collaborating with the road transport authority for incorporating the radio sat frequency requirement and the connectivity of different use cases over 5G. We also, as I understand also from our licensees, they have provided MiFi services in public buses using 5G network, which is localized hotspot with backhaul on 5G. So the licensee also in talks with taxi companies for the self-driving taxis, another initiative by the road transport authorities. So the TDRA also follows the Society for Automobile and Engineer, which is autonomous standards that are available in the UAE market and plan to be here for coming years. I'm sure that you know also that the effort that UAE has made for the road, which make the UAE road among the top 10 globally in the KPMG Autonomous Vehicle Readiness Index. So these things that the TRA can also, or TDRA can work on with the telecom operators, with the mobile industry. And I forget to mention one thing, that there is one entity or major player is not available right now with us, but it is the session, but they are available all the time in our committees, which are the vertical entities. I mean, Transportation Authority. They have to be also with us in order to understand also what they need, their requirement, how, and also they have to develop their regulation policies on how those cars, those vehicles can move in the road without having any kind of problems, the data and other things. So this is the thing that I can mention, and I agree also with my colleague Professor Ghaleb that having know-how here, that is important thing, and that is what we are doing together all. And one of the words that has been repeated in this session, collaborative. Collaborative is very important. If we need to make success of autonomous driving or 5G, whatever, there has to be a collaborative between all parties, and with that one we can make sure the success of any kind of technology in the UAE. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that elaborate answer. And I think you really do summarize, though, very critical points about the players that need to be involved. And I think one of the things you picked up on, particularly in this conversation, is the road authorities and the road infrastructure and the importance of getting their feedback to make autonomous driving possible on the roads. And then, of course, your role in the overall, I guess, infrastructure and developing the communications and the connectivity and working together with all the collaborative partners. So thank you so much. That was a very, very clear answer, and that came through. So Professor Ghaleb, I'd like to go over to you to your final comments on, we've heard what the UAE University is doing. We've heard that it's now positioning itself to be absolutely one of the best. We know that it's raising the bar and it's up for the challenge. We just want to hear a little bit more about you and how the university itself is going to play the role of a catalyst and bringing the partnerships and collaborations with the key stakeholders across all sectors to make this an intelligent transportation system a reality. Can we hear your final comments on that, please?
Yes, for sure. We are really trying to transform our campus, as I said before, to become an intelligent campus. That's mean what? It's a living lab. So we will encourage, basically, it's to attract all our partners to come in and to take part in this, what we call it, living lab campus. UAE University has a very strong record of nurturing and creating a partnership. Also, we understand UAE by itself can't do everything. So without partnership, without collaborating, without bringing industrial on board with us, I think we are not going to succeed. But that's what we are targeting. That's what we are going to, and to bringing in. Hopefully soon we will sign some MOU with many of our partner here. The other thing I think is exciting and is new about UAAU, of course, we have now decided that UAAU become a research-intensive university, but we were doing it in a traditional way. You know, it's just like any other university, but now we're going into new territory. We are encouraging our faculty basically to do what we call it disruptive research. Disruptive research, before, if you come and ask me, a faculty member ask me who want to do something weird, I will ask him 10 questions before I fund him. But now we know disruptive research is high risk, but is high return. And this is the future for all higher institutes that do research. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very good point. I guess this entire idea of autonomous driving is really a disruptive way of thinking. So it absolutely requires disruptive research. And it's good to hear that from you, and good to hear that that is something you're encouraging amongst the students of university, but also through collaborations with the other key partners. So last but not least, we would like to hear from Engineer Ali Al-Awadi from DO. Just to sum up your final opinion on the value of the collaboration, as you've heard from all the other speakers today, and just any final comments you have to any of the panelists here in this discussion.
Sure. I mean, as mentioned numerous times, indeed, collaboration is absolutely valuable for such a complex use case. I mean, as mentioned throughout this session, there are many different entities involved. It's about technology, it's about regulations, it's about research and development, and it's continuous improvement. And for that, of course, we need to be able to work together. The industry should be able to work together with the academia with the car manufacturers. All of those are bridged together one way or another. And that's really, really critical. And today, we're fortunate to have such an environment where such collaboration is highly encouraged and highly accessible. And we're doing excellent collaboration today with the UAE University, in which we're conducting and have high ambitions to conduct also a lot of experiments when it comes to autonomous driving. From DO, we have the capabilities to provide the needed infrastructure to facilitate for that. And again, it's 1 point extra to the body of knowledge when it comes to that collaboration between the industry and academia. And I think that's very important. And we as DO are very enthusiastic and very supportive of the fact of bridging that between the industry and the telecom and the academia and universities and research centers.
Thank you very much for that answer. And I don't think I could have summarized it better myself. You've really touched on some key points there and highlighted, I think you've said it very well when you say it's a collaboration, and I guess even an amalgamation of development, research, accessibility, technology, infrastructure. And there isn't one player in this entire, I guess, puzzle, if you'd like to call it, or project of developing an autonomy and an innovation in the driverless car space, that without that collaboration, this would not be possible. And so I think this really brings our conversation to a close today. I see that we're running almost out of time. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank all of the speakers and panelists that have joined this event today. I'd like to thank Forbes for hosting. Thank you all for joining. And without further ado, I think we can close this webinar for the day.